Welcome, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Donna, and this webinar is designed to shape how educators understand literacy learning in the classroom. Today, I want to invite you to think about literacy in a slightly different way. We often talk about reading, writing, and oral communication as skills, but what if the challenges we see in literacy aren't always skills-based? This webinar explores food security as a foundation for literacy development and how unmet basic needs like hunger can quietly shape students' engagement, attention, and success with literacy tasks. My goal is not to overwhelm you with the research, but to help you reflect, question assumptions, and begin developing a holistic and compassionate lens as future educators. The Ontario Language Curriculum emphasizes that literacy learning is deeply connected to a student's readiness, engagement, and sense of belonging. Literacy does not develop in isolation from a child's physical, emotional, and social well-being. To read, write, and communicate effectively, students need to be able to focus, process language, retain information, and engage meaningfully with text and with others. These are not just academic skills. It's a part of being human, and we depend on our basic needs being met. When we think about literacy through an equity lens, we begin to ask different questions. Instead of focusing only on what students can't do yet, we start considering the conditions that support or limit their ability to learn. Food security is one of those conditions, and it plays a much larger role in literacy development than we often acknowledge. Food insecurity refers to the lack of consistent access to enough nutritious food for an active, healthy life. This can include skipping meals, relying on low quality or insufficient food, or living with a constant uncertainty about where the next meal will come from. Importantly, food insecurity is not always visible. Students experiencing hunger may not look different from their peers, and families may work very hard to keep these struggles hidden. In classrooms, food insecurity often shows up indirectly through fatigue, difficulty concentrating, emotional regulation challenges, or inconsistent engagement. These signs are frequently misinterpreted as behavioral issues or academic weaknesses, when in reality, they may reflect unmet basic needs. This topic matters deeply to me because of my own professional experiences. As a child and youth worker previously, I was involved in running a school breakfast program and facilitating a food bank that supported families in my community. I noticed clear differences in students who arrived at school having eaten breakfast compared to those who had not. Some students struggled to focus, became easily frustrated, or disengaged from their learning tasks when they were hungry. When their basic needs were met, their ability to participate and learn often changed noticeably. These experiences made me question how often we attribute learning difficulties to ability or motivation without considering what might be happening outside of the classroom. And that questioning led directly to my problem of practice. So my question is, how might food insecurity be misinterpreted as literacy deficits in classrooms? As educators, we're trained to identify gaps in skills and then to intervene instructionally. However, when literacy challenges are rooted in hunger or instability, skills-based interventions alone may not be effective and may even unintentionally place blame on the students. The Ontario Language Curriculum emphasizes knowing the learner and responding to individual needs. This requires us to consider whether a child's difficulty with reading, writing, or oral communication is truly about skills development or whether it reflects barriers that lie beyond the classroom. Research consistently shows that nutrition plays a key role in brain development, attention, memory, and language processing, all of which are foundational for literacy. When children experience persistent food insecurity, these cognitive processes can be disrupted. Early childhood is especially significant. Studies indicate that food insecurity in infancy and early childhood is strongly associated with lower vocabulary development, weaker early literacy skills, and reduced school readiness. These early gaps can make it more difficult for students to access literacy learning once formal instruction begins. Across Canada and other parts of the world, a clear pattern emerges. Children from food insecure households have consistently lower performance in literacy, including vocabulary, reading readiness, and comprehension. Importantly, the research shows that persistent and repeated food insecurity has a stronger impact than short-term or occasional experiences. Literacy builds over time, and when foundational skills are disrupted early, the effects can continue throughout a student's educational journey. This research reinforces the idea that literacy development is not only about instruction, it's also about the stability and the support surrounding the learner. My next question focuses on how hunger and food insecurity may present as literacy-related challenges in the classroom. Rather than appearing as obvious hunger, food insecurity often shows up through learning behaviors. These behaviors are easy to misinterpret if we're not intentionally looking beyond the academics. Understanding these patterns allow educators to respond more thoughtfully and avoid a deficit-based assumption about a student. In the classroom, food insecurity may appear as difficulty sustaining attention during read-alouds, low stamina for writing tasks, limited participation in oral discussions, or inconsistent academic performance. Students may struggle with comprehension not because they lack the ability, but because hunger affects concentration and working memory. Emotional regulation challenges can also interfere with literacy learning, particularly during tasks that require persistence or confidence. These signs should not be used to label students, but rather as signals that invite curiosity. They encourage us to ask, what might this student need in order to learn right now? When educators shift from a deficit-based lens to a compassionate, inquiry-driven approach, our responses change. Instead of assuming a student lacks motivation or skills, we begin considering external factors that may be influencing learning. This aligns with trauma-informed practice and with the Ontario curriculum's emphasis on inclusive, responsive instruction. Recognizing that literacy challenges may be connected to unmet needs allows educators to support students more effectively without lowering expectations or compromising academic integrity. Schools play an important role in mitigating the effects of food insecurity. Universal supports such as breakfast programs, the availability of snacks, and predictable routines can significantly improve students' readiness to learn. From an instructional perspective, strategies like flexible groupings, emphasizing oral language, reducing unnecessary cognitive load, and offering low-stress entry points into literacy tasks can help students remain engaged. These approaches support literacy development while also honoring students' dignity and well-being. Now, teachers are not responsible for solving food insecurity, but we are in a unique position to notice patterns, advocate for students, and collaborate with school and community supports. By recognizing when literacy challenges may reflect unmet needs, educators can contribute to a more equitable learning environment. This advocacy aligns with professional responsibility and with the broader goals of public education. To summarize, literacy difficulties are not always skills deficits. Food insecurity can significantly influence students' attention, engagement, and ability to access literacy learning. The Ontario Language Curriculum calls on educators to understand learners holistically and to remove barriers to success. By recognizing the role of food security, teachers can respond with empathy, informed practice, and advocacy. This perspective does not lower expectations, it creates the conditions for students to meet them. I would like to leave you with this question. What might change in your literacy instruction if you assumed competence and questioned conditions instead? As you continue your journey as an educator, I encourage you to remain curious, reflective, and compassionate. Literacy instruction is powerful, but only when students are truly ready to learn.